Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers. This morning I'm looking at a rather curious book. I come from a period in legal history, if you like, where we had the common law as the jurisdiction we studied. We didn't really bother looking at many other areas. Roman law was quite popular in some aspects, and of course Latin, until just before I registered to do it, Latin was compulsory as a subject you have to have for O-level. That sort of dates me rather badly. However, what we've got today is a rather different world, and I found it fascinating. I was down in Kingston not so long ago, and Kinston University had been one of the leaders in looking at other jurisdictions. That's the French and the German legal systems. So what we've now got is this excellent book called English, French and German Comparative Law, now in a third edition, been written by Raymond Youngs, and it's part of Routledge. Now I'll show you the book because it's interesting. It's dealing obviously with a comparative analysis considering the different approaches to important areas of law in England, France and Germany. That's the front, there's the side of it, and there's the back of it, you can see. Now there's no companion website with this, but what you do have is you have an e-book if that's what you want. But what Raymond Youngs has produced here is a book which is very much part and parcel of where we're going at the moment with our membership of the European Union and the way in which laws are beginning to merge a little more than they ever used to do. Now let me just show you the book itself. It's got at the back a useful index. We'll just start off with that. And then you've got various other things. Detailed bibliography, always very important to know where your sources are. And then you've got a whole range. It actually finishes off with contract law right at the back. But if I go to the front of the book, you can see there's a statement about what this book is really all about from Routledge. Then you've got English, French and Comparative Law, the front sheet there. Then you have the contents. It sets out what's actually in the book itself. And it goes on, structure. There are sort of 6 main areas that it looks at. Human rights being an important area. Then Kinston University, a man himself, Raymond Youngs, has set out a preface which is worth reading. And I'm not going to say too much, but I'm very grateful they produced something like this because it's important. The previous edition has the preface in, and the first edition preface is also published, which gives you some idea of what he was looking at. Now, the introduction always sets the scene. It paints the picture of what this is really all about. Then there are some very useful abbreviations because, frankly, it is confusing. Anyone who's been to Europe, to Strasbourg or Brussels, will know how confusing some of these abbreviations are. We've also got very useful websites as well. And then a table of cases, of course, English cases, then there's other cases, a lot of those. Goes on a bit from the various different jurisdictions, then legislation as well. Then we get in to the basic, the constitutions of the countries concerned. Then it runs through from there. Then you have the legal systems and so forth. The book is 700 odd pages. It's quite heavy. It's a paperback. Again, I found it very interesting because I know very little really about the French and German systems. I mean, I've been to the countries obviously, and I've actually seen certainly the French courts. I found it a bit confusing, but I've been to Paris and I've seen some of the courts, but didn't really understand much of it. But there again, I'm only a member of the Bar for England and Wales, and I wouldn't have any rights anywhere else, and that's enough to keep me going, believe me. Now, we've given it a title. Elizabeth and I have looked at the book, we had a chat about it, and we've written this review, and we've said, The Legal Systems of England, France and Germany Compared. The definitive textbook for students of comparative law. That's what it is. But I think it's also of wider importance than that because we are part, at the moment anyway, and I hope it will remain that way, we are part of Europe, part of the European Union, and we really do need to know how the other jurisdictions work. I've said in other presentations that I think we have the greatest system in the world in the common law, which we've shared with a lot of other countries. But remember, on the continent it's different, and so we're therefore coming to it from a slightly different perspective, even though if you go back to the creation of the common law, it was Norman. So actually we got it from the French in the first place, if you think about it, but we've developed it in our own way over nearly 1,000 years. Now, this is what we say. UK students of comparative law will welcome the publication of the latest edition of this substantial and authoritative legal textbook from Routledge, which is a part of Taylor and Francis Group. And the author, Raymond Youngs, who's a solicitor, is the senior lecturer now at Kingston University and senior research fellow at the Institute of Global Law at University College London. Now, comparative lawyers will recall that Kingston University was one of the pioneers. I mean, obviously there are others, but I know that they were one of the pioneers in setting up courses specifically aimed at examining UK links with EU law, specifically, again, as I say, French law and German law. And this book, therefore, makes a useful contribution to the study of European jurisprudence, and in its scholarly yet straightforward and succinct approach, functions as a real time saver for students in this area, because of Kingston they have specific syllabus for this subject. It's worth noting that, as mentioned in the preface to the first edition from Mr. Youngs, the translations of statutory material contained in the book, including extracts from the codes and constitutions, are the author's own, and thank you for that. This new edition incorporates all significant new developments which have emerged since the publication of the previous edition, and a broad range of new case law has been examined on such issues as, to cite only a few, preventative detention, the internet, closed-circuit television, CCTV, DNA, the prevention of human trafficking, the privacy versus free speech debate, religious clothing, prenuptial agreements, and the balance between the fight against terrorism and personal freedom. Now, these are all political issues, effectively, as well, and they're all issues directly linked to the European Union, to human rights, and all the issues where we've really got ourselves in a little bit of a twist. And as I've indicated in other presentations as well, we have a general election in May 2015, and some decisions will have to be made, because these issues that I've just referred to are very basic issues which will be up for discussion during the general election campaign. And we've seen from the recent party conferences, which I attended one of them, and I've certainly seen them on television. I'm recording this just after those conferences, but you see that the big debates are there. The membership of the EU and the problems concerning, allegedly, the Human Rights Act, whether it should be scrapped, reformed, a Bill of Rights introduced, whatever. So we've got a lot of things to look at, and this book comes, again, in its new edition at a timely moment. In this book, therefore, as well as in previous editions, the aim has been twofold. First, to introduce and examine key areas of the three legal systems under discussion. Second, to create a convenient means of allowing readers to compare them, noting both similarities and differences. And we quote the author's observation that, quote, the differences are more revealing starting points for a critical appreciation of a legal system than mere speculation would be. So you're getting the detail. That's the basis of that. It's a main starting point as well, to try to understand how the different systems operate. And to summarise, the book is divided into 6 sections to cover constitutions and legal systems. Those are the first 2 chapters. Court systems, human rights, torts and contract, with emphasis throughout on such areas as the abuse of power and the rights of private individuals. The useful index at the back aids navigation, in our view, making it easier for students under pressure to look things up. I'd like to conclude by saying the book is certainly a formidable research resource with copious footnotes, a useful bibliography, a list of websites, journal sources, and an extensive table of cases and legislation. There isn't the website yet, but I imagine that will probably come as we find the companion websites around which are produced for other books extremely helpful, because it can keep you up to date, and there are also additional lecturing aids. I think practitioners, as well as students and others of comparative law, will no doubt find this book indispensable, and the publication date is cited at August 2013. And again, that's the book. Let's just see the side and then the back again, you can get an idea. I'll just open it anywhere, and you can see again, you've got, this is actually human rights, and you've actually got here the footnoting, which is carefully listed at the bottom, and again you've got some sub paras and various other things split up. But the whole aim of this is to, for instance here, is on human rights and European Union law aspects. It's very much a book that looks at our relationship with the other two big players in Europe, France and Germany. I think it's excellent as a textbook for anybody involved. It's also good to read if you perhaps going to those countries and having a look and seeing what they actually do. But can I thank all concerned for producing it? It's an excellent book, and thank you Routledge and the authors and all the people involved. Bye-bye.